Welcome everybody, this is the General SharePoint Development Special Interest Group call, bi-weekly Zoom, and this is the March 21st edition. And we are actually live streaming this from the MVP Summit, which is pretty cool. We've got like 12 MVPs in the room, plus me and Pat Miller, who's our engineering manager. Pat, you can actually wave as well, if they can see you. The microphone is on the back, so they can see you. You're pretty small. So just to clarify also that we have a SharePoint Dev kitchen today. So we're going to talk about some of the new stuff in SharePoint framework with the MVPs. And the MVP Summit was kind of basically closed yesterday, the main summit, and then there's an extended post days, and today is the SharePoint Dev post day for MVPs. We'll kind of talk about new upcoming stuff on SharePoint framework. We're going to talk about slightly identity stuff. We're going to talk about slightly craft and SharePoint REST APIs and CSOM API future together with MVPs. We will not, like I said, broadcast that live from Seattle to the internet, but I think this was a cool chance to actually see how things actually work. And the fact that we've got the video even working, this is pretty cool. This is pretty amazing that the technology works. Now, MVPs are starting to have selfies on the room, so. But let's get actually on phone. So it is March 21st. David is probably pushing those pictures live on the internet, so tweet it, which is fine. He'll actually does the live blocking anyway. But let's actually get moving. So the first things first, few slides, and then I'll let Bert do the introductions or the updates on the SIG Core and PnP PowerShell, unless Erwin wants to do the PnP PowerShell. Now that he finally arrived, you were late.
Yeah. Good morning.
Cool. Let's actually move on the slides. Now, like I said, we're going to do the typical agenda for the non-SharePoint framework call. So this is the PnP SIG Core extension update, PnP PowerShell update, then modernization tooling update. Chris is doing his demo. Chris is starting with a list formatting demo. I can't remember what the demo was all about because we talked good stuff. Okay, cool. Then Chaks is going to do cascading dropdown in PowerApps and Custom forms, and then Velin is going to do an ALM update on the DevOps pipelines, and so speeding up SPFx solution packaging by using parallel jobs. And like in the past, all of these are getting recorded, and we'll release them one by one next week in the YouTube area. And one more time repeating for those who are in the room, everything this is actually live streaming on the video, so please behave. And Erwin, now I'm watching you.
You probably should. Thank you, Erwin. He was watching me.
Cool. Just a quick recap on the opportunities. These are some of the slides which we always keep on this course, and do understand that it's a repeat, but there's always new people joining on this course as well. But this course will give other people, also MVPs and non-MVPs, an opportunity to do live demos. If you're interested, please reach out to me, Bert, Patrick, or Erwin, AC, and let us know that you want to do a live demo on this course. It's either this one or the SharePoint Framework course. Please contribute also on GitHub. Let us know if there's any issues, or if you want to do samples on existing samples or new samples, and then provide feedback. The key point for us is to understand if something is wrong and we need to fix that. Please tell us. That's the super important thing. Now, moving on areas, quick recap on our assets, AKMSSP DevOps, the documentation sites. We have released documentation already for SharePoint Framework 1.8. We will keep on improving that documentation and other areas as well. Videos and recordings will be at the AKMSSP Dev videos. We're hitting now 2.1 million views in a year on that YouTube channel, which is actually the biggest channel what we have in Office 365 Dev area by far. And then SharePoint Dev issues, so AKMSSP Dev issues, if you run into any SharePoint development API issues. There's a good chat on the Iron Window. It's good to see that people are active over there as well. Thank you, by the way, for joining from the room, for those who are active there. Now, let's actually move to the PnP CSOM Core. Now, it might be that in the room we can't, Bert, hear you too well, but we'll try to follow up on when we need to move on the slides. Bert?
Yes. Next slide, please, Professor.
Yep. See, I can hear you.
All right, PnP Sites Core library. We're in the middle of between releases, so within 2 weeks there will be a new release, the April drop. Up until now, not that many improvements in this version in April. There is some small bug fixes for the engine, and there's a new method that actually Erwin created, so you can give a bit more context about kind of method to take an app and sync it to Teams. So if you are doing Teams development using this method and the accompanying PowerShell commandlet, you can sync your app from the App Store into Teams. Looking forward, still schema support. There's lots of things that we have to add to the schema. Web part connections. There's a really nice PR from Yannick that implements web part connections. So I have to still test it, but that we'll get that in actually before the April release. Yep, I think that's kind of it, Vesa. So some progress, not a huge amount of progress, but good progress.
Good.
Can you move?
Moving on, right, Bert?
Yes.
So let's move to the PnP PowerShell. Now that Erwin is actually in the room and I have a microphone, do you want to do the PnP PowerShell update? I think we can actually do this using this microphone.
Oh.
Unless I'm completely mistaken. Technology is amazing.
Yeah, I'm okay.
And let's confirm that it's fine.
Does it work?
No.
No? You should not. Criminal.
Could be a good thing to stand on the table.
Is it better? Yeah. Oh.
Is it fine? Cool. Thank you, David.
Yeah, all good.
So that method that Bert just mentioned to sync an app to Teams, that's of course also exposed as a commandlet. So to sync PnP app to Teams, which is convenient if you want to programmatically provision an app from your app catalog to Teams. And we now allow you to set a content type when you create a new client-side page from PnP PowerShell, which is also quite nice that you can do that now. So that's basically the biggest changes there are. There's some small details and a lot of changes to documentation, but that's the majority of things where we are right now.
Cool. Thank you, Erwin. And then let's move to the modernization. Quick update on that side as well from Bert's side.
Yes, so we've done lots of good things actually in modernization, especially in page transformation. So page transformation is a technology that allows you to take wiki or web part pages and build modern client-side pages based upon that wiki web part page. In our April release, we will have log file generation. So you get like a nice MD log of all MD-based log file of all your transformation work, including optionally a page in the SharePoint site. So you get a report page using the MD viewer web part in SharePoint showing the report. So really cool. We do support pages living outside of the site pages library now, meaning people have web part pages on all different places, or they have additional wiki page libraries. That's now fully supported. We did some work on the HTML transformation tech. So essentially, we had a code review last week with internal engineering. And one of the changes we did there is like, we don't generate tables that you can't edit anymore in the rich text editor. So tables with col span, row span, they kind of, the col and row spans are taken away. You get kind of nice clean tables. And the same applies for nested tables. So if you have nested tables will be generated as individual tables, just one after the other. So you can move the tables around if you want. If you have nested tables and you generate them like HTML, you can't really use them anymore. So I think that's good progress. And then I think we are aiming at getting publishing page support in the April release. So the first version of that. So that's really, really cool. So being able to take a publishing page from your publishing portal and create a modern page in a communication site. So it kind of opens up the possibility for you to start modernizing those classic publishing portals and build modern com sites from that one. Then looking forward, page transformation UI, still on the V1, waiting for the V1. I think there's several improvements and bug fixes being planned there. No timeline at this moment in time.
Good, thank you, Bert. There's a good question actually on the chat. Just let's cover that one as well. How are content editor, web part, and JS, HTML, and content editor, content search web part handled in transformation? Just to recap what the transformation does, because I don't think everybody always remembers what it does.
So each web part, like the most common web parts, have a transformation, which covers like 90 to 95% of pages of all web parts, essentially. Content editor is kind of a special one. If the content is in a file, we load the file, like if it points to HTML file, we read the HTML file, transform the HTML, and generate the proper text using the rich text editor. If it's an SPFx file, it will be used as content embed. So, and if the content is inside the web part, and you have enabled the script editor web part, then we can also do it like that. So there's a very special one with different kind of paths depending on how it was configured. Content search and content query are transformed to the highlighted content web part.
Okay. Cool. I think that's it for quick updates on things. We're actually right on schedule. That's pretty cool. We might actually have some time for Q&A. Depends on how long Chris will actually talk. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Well, yeah. So just a recap of those also in the room, we are live streaming the video as well, the Skype window. So if you want to join on the Skype, if you want to join on the chat, you can do that. The video screen, the camera is on the back for those who are interested on what's actually happening. But hey, the point being on the fact that please behave. But let's actually. I will need to upgrade Chris as a presenter first, and I will give him then the. I'll give him this one, so I don't need to. So if I can actually find Chris from the presentation, and there is Chris. So let's promote you as a presenter, and then I'll move the microphone carefully to you.
Oh, thanks. All right. Can you guys hear me? Can you see the screen, all that? Yeah. No, I know you guys can. What about like, okay. All right, good. All right. Got the discrete steps here going on. All right, so I'm Chris Kemp. There's my Twitter tweets and all that, blog, all that. Do those things. All right. Moving on, though. So, we got our classic Warhorse site that we've all got, right? And things are getting a little heated. Things are getting a little crazy, right? So they've got to prepare for battle even further. They've got to up their production schedule. Some of the special Warrior Horse gear that's totally not made up on the spot. Okay, so we go to our gear list, right? So now we've got this. So what we've done is we've created a series of flows, right? So we've got flows associated with our gear. Let's make that a little bigger here. Whoa, there we go. All right, so if I select an item, I go to the flow menu. We wait a while. We'll see some flow. There they are, look at that. We got things to manage the state of our gear, right? So you might write that as a single flow that looks at, say, a stage of development, right, and branches off from there. But even then, you want to prompt users, right, because that's not obvious. What one do I pick for the item I've selected, right? So let's make that a little easier. So in the past, we've done some things where we've added a nice flow button. We're going to do that really quickly, then we'll customize it further. So when we do that, we're going to go here, we're going to add a format-only column. And the way you do that is you just simply pick a calculated column, and you're going to say, equals and formula. You say equals, double quotation mark. It's a very complicated formula. But that's about it. We hit OK. Now we have a column that can only be used in the display. So it's not going to get in the way when you're editing items or you're creating new items. And we can add a format to it. So I'm going to come down here in the column settings, format this column. And we over here on our pin it or unpin it. I have no idea. Anybody know? We'll just do this. There we go. All right, we go over here. So we've got our classic kind of samples repo. I assume someone will paste a link in chat. All right, so our SP dev list formatting in GitHub, where we've got 60 samples now. Tons of stuff to choose from. If we go to our column samples, we've had this one for a while. We've got the generic start flow. All you've got to do is you grab this JSON right here, and we're going to cut and paste it right in there. All this is doing, for a very quick recap, is it creates a button as a custom action here of execute flow. And we do this JSON that's been escaped to fit inside JSON because JSON can't handle sub-JSON. Okay, but the idea is here we put in here the ID of the flow we want to run. We'll go over that in a second. And the rest of the stuff just makes it look real pretty with the buttons and text. So we grab that, we head back to our Warhorse site, paste that in, and we preview that. We get this nice, it's flow time button, right? And if we have the right flow, we got to come up here to flow. So we'll figure out, say, destroy gear. The way you get that flow ID, just come up here to this URL. You see right there between the words, let's see, flows. I don't know, I'm not the Zoom master here. There we go. Oh, there we go. Between flows, this beautiful thing right there. You're going to grab that sucker. You don't have to memorize it.
This is a family show.
Yeah, family show. Is sucker bad? I'm so sorry. You paste that in there. Boom. We'll save that. We'll close that. Now if I refresh this list, right, now when I click on it, right, I can launch that particular flow. Woo, right? It's going to launch that destroy gear. So that's cool, but I've got 3 different flows I want to show based on this stage right here. Right, so I only want to do the right one. So I can start to do custom things, right? So I can change how that looks. I can change some of that text conditionally based on another column in the view. So if we take a look at that, we've got column settings, format this column. We'll just do this one over here. Right, so the easiest one is text content, right? So instead of it's flow time, we want to give the user a little more hint of what's happening, right? So say equals if, and we'll reference our stage column using the internal name, right? So we say if it's blank, then, that's deploy, right? If it's a little sub if, it's like a switch statement, right? So if stage is, let's see, develops. I don't know what it is. We got my notes here. Develops. There we go. Development. All right, so this whole idea. If it's development, then you're going to want to do deploy, destroy, whatever. All right, you get the I forgot my things here. Oh, there it is. If development, deploy. You got it, guys? Everyone's paying attention? Deploy. And we'll say develop. This is incredibly important. We're going to copy and paste to fix all this in just a minute. All right, so deploy, and then otherwise we want to destroy. Perfect. So we preview that. Hey, look at that. So now we've got custom text, right? It's still launching the same flow. It's still doing the same thing. All right, so if your flow is doing conditional logic, right, you're just prompting users so they know why they're clicking that, right? But some of these, maybe we don't want to show a button at all, right? Like the gear has been destroyed. There's nothing more to do it. Like it's out of the loop, right? So how do we get rid of that? So this is the idea of conditionally hiding or showing entire elements. Right, so you can only apply logic with inside properties. So you can't do it to include properties or exclude properties. You can't do it to include or exclude elements. But you can come up here to the display element, right? So I'm just going to say display, and then we'll say another nice conditional, right? So equals if. So if the stage, right, equals destroyed. Although we want to say none for the display, otherwise we'll scare it. All right? Now if we figure that, we see, hey, the button goes away when we shouldn't have it. So the user is not prompted to launch something when they shouldn't be launching anything. Okay? Now we can start to jump in and go through each one of these. When we go through, we can change the icon, we can change the color, all this other stuff. But the more important thing is changing the actual flow. So it's not going to be super complicated. It's the exact same logic. The key thing to note here is, although this looks a little crazy, this is just a string, which means we can do our same string concatenation conditionally with all those different IDs, right? So we just wrap that up. And so we say equals if. And now we just put all that in single quotes. Yeah, we find the end of it. There it is. So now all we're doing is we're doing the exact same kind of logic. So if stage equals so on and so forth. Now this one has several IDs, so I'm just going to, at this point, I'm going to cheat. So if we go back, so we got this start flow. There's a brand new sample called start flow conditionally. So see if you can find it. Very exciting. Click on it. We're going to do the exact same thing. And the key difference here is it just has all that same logic, that conditional logic that we're taking a look at with the text, with the icon, doing here with the same with the display. We're even doing it with the classes, so we can do different colors. And here's the key, right? So you guys can see this. The ID. So we build it first. So we're building that escape action parameters. We're building the ID. And then we're just checking that same stage variable to figure out which ID from which of our flows we're going to pop in there. Okay? Now, one thing to note is that one of the very few properties you cannot set conditionally with an expression is action up here. So if you need to set action conditionally, say maybe you want to do edit prompts, right, versus display the item, default click, you're going to have to create that as a separate element altogether and use the display to choose which element to turn on or off, because you cannot do that inside action. But you can do it with action param, so that's what we're going to do. So we'll go back to our site, copy all that, paste over it. We're going to preview that. Woo! All right, so we're going to save it, because the first time you click the button, it doesn't work. So don't be alarmed if when you just previewed it, the button doesn't work, refresh it. All right, so now when we hit develop, we get develop here, right? And if we come down here and we hit deploy, we get deploy here. So the whole idea is I, as an end user, I don't have to click here, go up to the flow menu, and figure out what am I actually doing at this stage. You can prompt users through an entire process. Right, I'm using one column to do that, but you could use quite a few different things, right? Is it completed already? You know, is it on hold? You can make some pretty complicated logic, and you can then also handle that logic in your flow, but prompt your users for it.
Quick question, actually, because we have Chaks on the table on the front as well, and this is that was a good question on the IO window and the chat, and we'll come back on the other questions. Hopefully, we'll have time for Q&A in the end. But there was a question related on, could I actually start the flow without the left panel? So directly on the clicking the button, and I'll keep the microphone for Chaks just in case.
So this is integrated with how flows are executed in SharePoint. So the panel is the way how we treat the experience of executing a flow against a resource in SharePoint. So that's what we kind of get. If you want to do it in new tab, I don't know the exact command what you need to do, but you may not be using the inbuilt command to launch the flow, execute command in the formatter. You have to use some URL link instead.
Hitting an HTTP address?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So just to recap, all right, so conditional logic for properties, you can only conditionally set the value. So that's something that comes up a lot where people are trying to say, I only want to include the colors, text color, right, when it makes sense to include it. No, you have to always include the property, and then you conditionally set it, right? So you can set it to inherit, you can set it to empty strings if you don't want to actually set that value, right, in your else condition. So you always have to include or exclude properties, or you can't conditionally, yeah, you read it. Okay. Now, the next thing is for elements, so it's not a thing. You cannot conditionally include or hide an element. So the key there is create kind of an empty parent, div, or other container, and then inside the children, conditionally turn them on or off, which is okay in some conditions. If you're getting really complicated, it gets to be a real nuisance. So hopefully we'll get that eventually, but for now, that's how you handle that. So especially in the case of trying to do a different action. Okay? And last thing here. So go check out the docs. This is the repo, again, 60 plus samples. Go cut and paste those things, customize them, submit some new ones. And then we've got a write-up on each of those things. So the first part, where I showed you how to do a format-only column, kind of through that real quick. The conditional column, that's that LF format only. And if you want to find a little more about how to do the multi-flow, where do you copy that ID and all that written up for you, that's in the multi-flow. That's it for me.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks, Chris. And I will upgrade Velin as a presenter. We move along on the demos. I'll find you on the list, and then there you are. And the microphone is heading to Velin as well. So good.
Now presenting. Okay, there you go. So, my name is Velin. I'm a SharePoint developer for a very long time, but today I'll be a DevOps guy. So we'll try to speed up our build by using a parallel jobs in Azure DevOps. So this is like a follow-up on a previous session, so it's not basics. If you want to go from the very beginning, you should visit those URLs, because today we'll not cover any basics, and I'll go with weird terms, and if you don't understand them, just feel free to go into the previous videos and understand what it is. So in the previous demo, I've showed you how you can build two packages. And those two packages are pulled from the source control that is in GitHub. Oh, I can remove the thing. And if you go here, you see that I'm building two separate SPFx packages here, and I have also release scripts obviously in the release pipeline. But the way I'm doing it is I'm doing those two packages in a sequence. So I have to wait a minute 23 seconds here, so NPM will install all the packages to be able to build the first solution, and then I have to wait another minute here And all this can be done in a parallel. So we don't have to wait all that execution, because in case we have 10 different solutions, that might take forever. So we have so-called parallel jobs in Azure DevOps, and like here, I will just open that one to show you how it looks. Basically, we might have 3, 4, whatever you like, jobs executing in parallel, and in those jobs, the tasks, if the tasks are not dependent between each other, they can run at the same time, and that might dramatically speed your build. So I'll just do a quick change, and I'll try to raise Windows versus Linux, because previously we talked about that, and we were wondering whether Node.js will run faster on Windows or on Linux. There was a discussion, so today I'll just raise those two. Basically, that dev job will run on Windows, and that is basically building SPFx.
So I want to
the prod job is building another SPFx. So those two do almost the same. They do npm install, they do gulp bundle, gulp ship, if you see here. And there's only one difference that I've put on the node, on the Linux side, where the Linux will do an extra task here. So we'll raise those two. I'll just do a change here in my code. I'll just change that to version 2 to see how this will perform. I'm using the hosted machines that Microsoft provides. So we'll just raise the hosted machines and see how that might go. So that will start the build once the code goes into the source control. And we'll see how this is running. And while this is running, I will also show you how I'll build that. Like, while we're waiting, previously, in the previous session, that's my, not this one, so it's that one. In my previous session, I've shown you how to build it in a sequence, and basically you have task, one after the other. So script, task, and everything is top to bottom, task after task, and that's executed in a sequence. Now the difference with that is a little bit different syntax, where you split the task into different groups, and on top of those different groups, you have just jobs, and after the jobs, you have that specific job. Underneath, you decide what will be your compute virtual machine to do the work, and then you have your tasks top to bottom here. And then you have another job to do the other parallel, the parallel job, and you have tasks there. So they will run at the same time. Probably they've already started, but I have to go back to my builds and see what's happening. So the build is running, and those are running in parallel. So as you can see, the release script is already done, because all I'm doing here, I'm doing a zip file with my bash script and the CLI script, Office 365 CLI script running in. So that is a very quick thing, but those two now are racing. They started almost at the same time. And one is using Windows, the other is using Linux. Let's see what is happening here. We are on the npm install phase. That one is also on the npm install phase. So after these are done, the build will just create 3 artifacts here. One artifact will be with the release scripts. The 2 will be just different packages. Okay. Almost there. Yeah, so all these, the whole definition is in the samples library. So you can grab those and see what is the difference between the jobs running in parallel and the jobs running in a sequence. You can test it by yourself, because all I'm using the free tier implementation between GitHub and Azure pipelines. So all that can be tested. You just have to find the sample and all these definitions and test it by yourself. And here we should be done. Okay, so the job's completed, almost. So we're bundling the packages now. That should be done in a few seconds. As you can see, the second one completed. So it seems that the Ubuntu hosted machines completed faster than the Windows hosted machines. And we are still waiting the bundle and the build process here. So we can compare the timings. It's like it took 1 minute 49 seconds. But you can put your hands on your ears if you like, because Yeah. Like 1 minute 94 for the Linux hosted machine and 2 minutes 18 for the Windows hosted machine. Now, disclaimer, because we're using the hosted machines, and that's highly dependent on the hardware on that machine. You might have a virtual machine that is a high spec on Windows, and obviously that will perform way, way better. So that raise doesn't prove anything. But if you're using the hosted machines, you might consider Ubuntu for some reason. If you're building 100 solution packages, for example, might speed up for you. But that's in general. This at the end of the build is that it's two packages built in parallel, and the release script is being built in a third job. And the whole thing takes roughly 2 minutes because everything is done in parallel as compared to the previous one that will take 3 minutes. So that's very beneficial for just big builds with multiple solutions. Okay?
One thing to add, I was reading the Twitter and Introverse last week that Node.js and NPM 10, the 10 version, has improved a lot for Windows Perf. So I don't know what version of Node.js.
Well, that's version 8 because that's what SharePoint
right.
supports.
But apparently that has more improvements to Windows Perf. So
there's
we have that on the room, and let's get it recorded for the community call members as well. So the question was around the Node version. We still support an SPFx Node version 8. How about when do we might upgrade to 10?
Peter.
That wasn't what I was going to talk about, but that's fine. I put my hand up and I got asked a question. So right now, internally, we use 8 and we're moving towards 10, so it shouldn't be too long. What I was going to say, though, is, so there's a tool called Rush that we produce that is effectively specifically for this. It will spider through a large repository. It'll build all your packages in parallel. It'll manage all the node module references to have only a single set for the entire solution. That's what we use for our build tools. It's public. It's what other people use. We just need to document how it works well with this, or with SPFx. Yeah. So what we might try and do is grab some of the PnP directories and Rushify them and put that out as an example.
Yeah. So just to recap on that one, so just repeating the same what Pat was saying. So we're using Rush. Rush is something which our engineering created to manage the large SPFx release pipelines, and basically, but it is partly documented, but it's not well known. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, and it's on GitHub, it's on NPM, it's public and maintained by the community and stuff.
Yeah. But we'll get that one documented. And upgrading to Node version 10 is in progress. It wasn't part of the 1.8. It will be probably in 1.9, but most likely. But let's not promise that yet.
Yeah, I mean, chances are it's just removing the check that says, hey, what version are you using? But we want to make sure that there's no gotchas somewhere in the build tools that mess up on it.
Yeah. And one more time also for people who are, because I'm still getting puzzled, people are arriving on the room for the SharePoint Dev Kit, and I was like, well, what is this? What's happening? But this is the Thursday morning community call, live streaming from this room, camera is in the back, and we have still 7 minutes. And that's Victor jumping on the camera, so good job, Victor Velin. And the whole point was that you have to behave, and you then, anyway. And best behave. Now, so we went through 3 demos today. We have Chris's demo, and there has been an active discussion on iWindow related on the demos. Chris showed the column formatting and flow, activating a flow conditionally. And that sample is available in GitHub. I know that David Warner on front row is kind of live tweet and block the links and everything else. So those who are joining on the call and watching this, if you follow up on David Warner second on Twitter, he will push out the blog post in 2 minutes roughly after the call is actually ending with links and all that stuff. Thumbs up, excellent. Then Chaks showed the cascading dropdowns in PowerApps and Custom forms. To be honest, I had a small hiccup during my recording in my laptop, so I'm crossing fingers that Bert got that section. We'll get it get it out as a separate video for next week. If not, we can probably set up a separate quick recording on Monday for that demo with Chaks, and we'll get it out. And then thank you, Velin, also showing on the DevOps pipelines. Now, we don't have a massive amount of, again, time for the Q&A, but now we do have like 60 MVPs, 60, 50, 40, 2,000 MVPs in room. But this is a perfect chance for anybody on the IM window or chat to have any questions from anybody in the room around SharePoint development. We can give and this no question from you. Now we can randomly, if there's anybody on the IM window on the community side, we can probably bet that most of the SharePoint data. Obviously, we can talk about really in detail what happened and what we shared in MVP Summit. A lot of this stuff will be public more on the SPC and build timeframe. Pretty long question related on the future of SharePoint development from a direction perspective, and the question is more around the publishing, and they've been doing publishing portals and where we are heading. So, in these community calls and in our public messaging, we've been promoting the modern experiences, obviously, as the future. We do understand from a Microsoft perspective that there are still limitations in the modern experiences, so you can't really do as customized portals right now as with the classic publishing. But the future is around SharePoint framework development for client side. From an API perspective, using Microsoft Graph as the de facto way of getting contextual data. And then the modern experiences, so communication sites for the portal experiences. That's really the thinking of the future. Chaks?
So this comes up in every community call.
Let me get you a microphone. And if we go 2 minutes long, it's fine if there's a good discussion with the community. So.
This comes up in every community call, and I see the question here, when will GCC clients get PowerApps and Flow? So again, last week.
Explain what is GCC.
GCC is government cloud. It's a secure cloud for government agencies in the US. There's a GCC low, medium, which is what GCC refers to, and then there's GCC high. For PowerApps and Flow, they went live to GCC low and medium, which is the first gate to GCC clients. And you can go to their website, flow.microsoft.us, I guess, and same for PowerApps, and use the SharePoint connector from there. We are working to make the integration pieces in the SharePoint UX later, probably in a month or so, that will enable page approvals and reminder flows and every other integration we have done in SharePoint to show up in those GCC SharePoint sites. But if you want to unblock yourself today and build flows and PowerApps connecting to SharePoint, not custom forms yet, but at least the PowerApps apps, you can go to their respective portals and use the SharePoint connector, and that should work today with GCC low and medium support.
Cool. Thank you. Now you can give the microphone. Ralph has a comment related on SharePoint 2019, and that is an afterthought. Just to clarify again on the, let's say, the direction of Microsoft on the releases. So SharePoint 2019 is actually forked from SharePoint Online code, which has happened more than a year ago. So the SharePoint 2019 and how we released the on-premises is that uncertain time frame we fork SharePoint Online, and then we make that work in on-premises. And that's why SharePoint 2019 is missing some of the latest capabilities in SharePoint Online, because in SharePoint Online we are releasing a new version, I think twice a week nowadays, or even faster than that. So that's why it's cloud first, and all of the new capabilities are coming there, because we control the backend. Classic discussion on GitHub and internet also is that, well, why don't you upgrade the SPFx version for SharePoint 2016 or SharePoint 2019? Answer is we can't, because we don't control the backend. In SharePoint Online, we can't, because we control the backend. We can upgrade that as we move along. Now, if there will be a Service Pack 1 or something similar for SharePoint 2019, we might pump the version. There's no decisions on that. Most likely answer is actually no, just to provide some transparency on that. Disappointed faces on the room as well, but hey, rather know and rather be open and honest than not know about these things. Any other good questions on the chat window? We are running on the hour. There's a Waterman is commenting, could you talk about the parallel jobs in terms of private and public repos? Oh, the answer's already. Okay, so that's one. And Waterman is in the room as well, so yeah. But I think that's it for now. This was a experiment, and apparently technology worked pretty nicely. So we were actually live streamed to the community call this morning. There is roughly 40 MVPs in the room, and you actually did behave, so that's good. There's always the risk of something happening when we do this kind of thing. So the recording of this call will be live in 24 hours in the YouTube channel. Now, I do apologize if we miss Chaks demo, and we need to do some editing on that. We'll recap that.
I will blog this anyway.
Yeah, Chaks will blog that anyways later today or early next week. But thank you everybody for joining. Please do give us feedback also on internet and Twitter. It was this nice experience. Obviously, we don't get to have 2,000 MVPs on the same location every week because everybody has their own life as well. But I think this was relatively successful. But thank you everybody joining. Thank you everybody joining on the internet. Thank you everybody joining in the room. We'll move into the actual Dev Kitchen topics in 10 to 15 minutes. But I'll shut down the broadcasting because we can live broadcast that live to internet. Thank you. Thank you.